Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Lazy Girl's Guide to Podcasting. I'm here with Mark from Captivate FM. Hi Mark, how's it going? I just feel really penned in. And
I know, I feel a little bit like I can't move myself.
It's brilliant. Tom, are you producing this, Tom? I feel very posh if I suddenly say that Tom is producing this episode. Tom, you're producing this episode, has very artistically and professionally pinned us in with these microphones because Tom from Spiritland Media, we are very privileged to be recording in their space at the Podcast Show London today. So I know, Mark, we're going to chat about Podcasting 2.0. That is what we have been saying for the last couple of months that we're going to catch up with. Trying to collaborate diaries is a nightmare. And then all of a sudden we're in the same place at the same time. So we were like, right, let's do this. But before we jump onto that, we need to talk about the fact that we're at the Podcast Show London. How are you finding it so far?
Oh, it's wild.
Absolutely.
It's fascinating, actually, for me. So I've been doing podcasting events since 2014.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it was sort of weird because I always used to have to go out to the States.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you know, I used to go out to the States that often. I was at every Podcast Movement, PodFest. I used to do like MapCon.
Name dropping
PodCon.
there.
Yeah. Well, so here's the interesting thing. A lot of people say that. It's wow, Podcast Movement. And don't get me wrong, it's huge, it's amazing. To me, it's just Jared and Dan, two friends, because there was so few of us back then.
Yeah.
So to number one, to see this and to be part of this for the third year, and to see how it's developed and developing, you know, to have something like Spiritland running this studio, for me, it blows my mind because I've seen so many try to get off the ground in the UK and struggle because the industry wasn't ready for it.
Yeah.
And now here we are. So I'm delighted by it. I think it's, and I get to meet great people like yourself that
bless you.
We've chatted online, we've done interviews, but you know,
Yep.
to see you face to face, we would normally have to go to Chicago or something.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's amazing.
And especially coming, I flew all the way from Jersey. There we go. I've dropped my little sob story, little violin story in there. Came all the way over for this today. But no, it's fab, isn't it? It's
It
like
is.
you've been doing some different talks today. What have you been doing talks on? You've done two, haven't you?
Yeah, so I did a growth talk this morning. It was supposed to be 3 podcast growth myths that you can ignore. I ended up doing 5 of them. I always
bonus.
run over. Yeah, I started making my notes. I was like, this might be a long one. And then I put together a panel with Sarah Ray, who's the head of podcast sales at Global, and Jordan Harbinger, the founder and the host of the Jordan Harbinger Show.
Amazing.
So we talked about the future, the current state and the future of podcast monetization.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it was quite fascinating, that one, because it was very much, with my Global and Captivate hat on, it was very much one foot in the big 1% podcasting world, and then the other foot in the other 99%, the creator economy stuff. So that was quite an interesting panel, actually.
Oh, amazing. Have you been to any of the talks yet?
Not yet. I'm going to see my friend Ollie Waters later. He's talking on the brand stage.
Love it.
I've not had a chance to get to them because we've got a booth as well as Captivate.
Yes.
So, and I walk down. Literally, all I've done is you walk around the hall and you're seeing people and talking to people, and it's been brilliant. But I am going to probably hide in the back of a talk this afternoon.
That sounds like good fun. I went and listened to Fern Cotton's talk, and then I spoke to her afterwards, and she was absolutely lovely, and I just completely forgot how to formulate sentences and words. And I was like, and she was probably thinking, who is this nutter stood in front of me? But she was very sweet.
She must get that a lot, though. She's a very charming person.
She is, but also I think she's somebody as well. She's only a couple of years older than me. I've literally seen her from her days of doing like children's TV.
Right.
So I feel like she's almost grown up, or I've grown up with her in like a weird kind of way, but never mind. Anyway, you mentioned Captivate. Tell us about Captivate first, because long-time listeners of the show will know about Captivate because I rave about it so much. In fact, I will just say I came down to your guys' stand earlier, and there was somebody, and he was asking about Captivate and just, you know, talking about it. And I turned around and I said, "Are you with them?" And he was like, "No, not at the moment." Why? And he looked really scared of me. And I said, "I have had amazing growth since switching to Captivate. I would totally recommend it." And then I kind of realised that there was somebody from Captivate there who was supposed to be selling it and not me. And I was like, I'm going to go now. I'm off. But what is Captivate? Tell me all about it.
Absolutely. Well, that's super kind. Thank you. So Captivate is a hosting, distribution, monetization platform for podcasters. So at the most base level, we'd take the audio from an episode, turn it into an episode, and put it out to Apple, Spotify, and so on. We measure the analytics that come back off that. But the bigger picture is we help creators to grow. We've got a mantra, actually. Whenever we create something as Captivate, It will either save you time, or it will save you money, or it will make you money. That they are the only filters that we run our feature list through.
I love that.
And yeah, it's I mean, because that's what we all want. I'm a creator,
Mm-hmm.
and I want. That's why we built Captivate, and
Yep.
and we're very specifically only focused on the serious creator. We don't. There's no demarcation to us between a new podcaster or a legacy podcaster or a veteran or whatever else. There's none of that. It's just if you come to us and say, I'm serious, I want to grow my audience, then we are probably the hosting platform.
Yeah.
Because we do so much more around that. We're essentially a work management system for podcasters now. And much more to come. We've got, as you know, we're always releasing new things. So there's a hell of a lot on the roadmap this year.
Amazing. I think what I loved so much when I switched over to Captivate was I was able to get rid of about 2 other tools because you've just got so much that was in one. And don't worry, guys, this is not a pitch for Captivate. I'm just throwing out the different opportunities there for podcast hosting. But no, because I actually worked it out yesterday. Actually, I was going down for some stats for the podcast. And my listenership, my audience, like so many of them have gone up about 300% since switching over to you guys, which to some people that might sound huge, to some people that might sound none or very small. And no, I did not start with just 1 listener and now up to 4 because that would be like, the 300% rise. But no, it's, so yeah, there's a lot of tools and features in there. And I think what I really love about it, I will say, is that little embed, the link embed that you've got that you can put on social media. I haven't seen that on other hosting providers. They might have it now, different hosting providers, but it wasn't something when I signed up to you guys that I'd seen before, and that I think is absolutely wonderful. But I'm not going to turn this into a sales, but before anyone's like, oh my gosh, this is a sales pitch, what's she getting us to buy? I'm not getting you to buy anything. By the way, there's an affiliate link in the show notes, so check that out. Anyway, no, we are here to talk about podcasting 2.0. Because I think that quite often people hear this phrase bandied about, podcasting 2.0, and they're like, I wasn't even aware that there was a podcasting 1.0, first of all. So, in a nutshell, how would you describe what podcasting 2.0 is?
Yeah, so if you think about podcasting generally, it came off the back of RSS feeds, and we still use RSS feeds to this day, and RSS feeds were intended as a way of pushing out rather than pulling in information. So that typically be like blogs and news articles, and what you could do is you could get an RSS feed, subscribe to it in an RSS reader, whether that was something like a feed burner, I guess, or a Google News, or I can't remember what else there was. This
is so back in the day terms. I love it.
Yeah, it really is back in the day, isn't it? And then Adam Curry and Dave put this enclosure tag in there, which meant that you could say, okay, inside an RSS feed, you can now put a link to some audio. And the RSS feed will tell anyone listening and anyone looking at this feed what the audio is, where to get it, so that it can be played in an app, and then the title of the audio and the description of the audio are in these other tags within the RSS feed. So that's podcasting. Podcasting 2.0 is essentially trying to develop a number of features on top of the RSS feed. So these are called tags. It's a little bit kind of geeky and a little bit techy. And frankly, it's boring. Because
not to me.
No, well,
and not to you,
me
because it's your business.
But it actually, at its most basic, it is boring. It's basically, okay, here's a tag that goes in an RSS feed, and if an app that is reading that RSS feed supports it, then a feature will be unlocked. Okay, so we're essentially adding features to podcasting. So examples of this would be the funding feature. So with Captivate, you can sell memberships, you can ask for tips, you can collect revenue from people, and they can pay you for whatever bonus, exclusive, whatever that is. Previously, you just say, right, there's a link in my show notes. That's cool, and it would be to the Lazy Girls Guide to Podcasting / whatever, and you would make that up. Mm-hmm. With something like Podcasting 2.0, there's something called the funding tag or the funding feature, and what that will allow is that, okay, Captivate, because we've got the funding facilities to be able to allow you to make money, we could say, well, I'll tell you what, let's put the link to that inside this funding tag, which means that if an app like Apple Podcasts or any other listening app was to say, wait a sec, every time we see a funding tag, just put a button on the podcast episode so that when a listener clicks it, it will take them straight through to being able to give Verity some money. That is the ultimate goal with this, is this symbiotic relationship between what the creator needs, what a hosting platform like Captivate can include in its interface, which will then send data and information through to a listening app that will turn it into a feature. And that's what this is all about. It's taking this range of features like funding, like the geolocation, like things, eventually things like cross-app commenting. That's the movement, is to take RSS and turn it into a 2.0 and to make it more useful to everyone. So there's a long way to go, but we're making strides. And we've got, there is something called the Podcast Standards Project, which Captivate is a founding member of. There's us, Transistor, Justin and John at Transistor. There's Podbean, Libsyn, Blueberry, Buzzsprout, any host you can think of, RSS.com. And we all collaborate and we all get together. We've got a lunch tomorrow.
See, now that's interesting.
Yeah, we just all get together and we do work together.
I think
no one believes it.
No, I was going to say, I think that is fascinating. So I remember you put something up on Twitter, it was a while ago, and it was a lunch where loads of people across different platforms got together. And I was like, you don't see that in different industries. Like, you would not see that in different industries, but there's something about podcasting where it's like, hang on, we've got this thing, how can we make this better for all of the podcasters, as opposed to, I think in other industries you'd very much see it as, oh, well, that's an exclusive feature for them, and then these guys have got to figure out how to do it on their own, or like, and I just think that is almost the beauty of podcasting, of just how everyone just wants everybody else to do well. It's quite a nice little happy place over here, isn't it?
That's why I got into it. Genuinely, I got into podcasting because I was recording my own content, and I went out to NMX in Vegas in 2015, 2014. And I had this idea for a couple of companies. We just started Podcast Websites, which was our first company, and actually had an idea for another company that I own, which we don't do much with. It's a very specific type of startup that's working behind the scenes. I had the idea for that all those years ago back then, and that was my first ever actual genuine podcasting idea. But the reason that I got into podcasting in earnest was on the back of that event, and how collaborative everyone was. Because I came from like the design and digital industry. Everything was cutthroat. Everything was, we're all gonna pitch for this work, this software development work, or this website work, or this branding work, and we're gonna, we were gonna get put down by other agencies. They were gonna say that we weren't good enough just so they would win the work. And that was awful. What a terrible place to be. Got into podcasting, went to these events, and I was like, wow. Really? Yeah. And so I've always tried to advocate for that. And the PSP, the Podcast Standards Project, is I didn't lead that. I think it was Justin and a few of the other guys, but we were there from day one, and it was just nice to see that it still exists. 10 years later, $4-6 billion in ad revenue running through the industry, depending on who you listen to and read. But yet we're still collaborating. So that's cool. I love that.
That's amazing. I love that so much. And yes, we've got Tom, who's happily producing this episode over there. And yeah, it is. It's teamwork. I don't think you would have this kind of opportunity in other circles, which I just find absolutely fascinating. But anyway, back to podcasting 2.0. So I guess how I'm kind of hearing it is podcasting OG 1.0, whatever we want to call it. That was literally just, we are transmitting the information. Mm-hmm. We are just like, this is it going from A to B. And this podcasting 2.0 is, we're now making it more user-friendly and giving you more options. It's almost like buying a game install pack, isn't it? And being able to say, we're taking it from the basic game, and we're now giving you all of this that you can really level up your podcast in whichever way you want to. So I guess when you put it like that, anybody who's kind of panicking and thinking, oh my gosh, podcasting 2.0, I don't get it. It is just like a game add-on, really, isn't it? To just really amplify and build up. And I think it's probably safe to say that most people, in fact, every podcaster, is going to be using these podcasting 2.0 features without even realizing it, because so many people have got all of these different, it seems like everyone's got buttons to press and do all these different things. I mean, you guys have just introduced the YouTube section as well. Is that part of podcasting 2.0, or is that just is that looking at it a bit too roundabout? It's
a naughty implementation of podcasting 2.0.
Okay. 2.1.
2.01. So it is essentially, there's a tag in podcasting 2.0 called the alternate enclosure. So the way that podcasting works is you've got an RSS feed that's got loads of data about number one, the show. It's like a box of data. The box is information about the show. And then inside that, you've got these little episodes that are little packets of information. And in there, you've got the title, description, and what we call the enclosure tag, which is where the MP3 file lives. And that's how the apps know. When I ask for a title and I want to read it on Apple Podcasts, that info comes from that tag inside the RSS feed. If I want to press play, when I press play, theoretically, the file has been downloaded from the link in the enclosure tag in the RSS feed. So, geeky way of saying, Podcasting 2.0 has got another tag, which is called alternate enclosure. Now, this was intended primarily for use in translations. So you and I are talking now, we're talking in English. You send it off to AI, you get an actual human to translate it into Spanish. And what happens is that you say, right, episode 125 is here, press play, and then an app, theoretically, could see that you'd put the Spanish version into the alternate enclosure tag and say to the listener, oh, if you want this in Spanish, press this play button, or here's a drop down to choose, press play, and we'll give you the Spanish version. And you just upload an English and a Spanish to one episode, and the host takes care of the rest. Okay, so very geeky. What we did was, we saw that, and we did this, we've been thinking about this for a long time. Then Sam Sethi from Pod News and True Fans, he was like, why don't you do this? And then claimed the idea, Sam. But he was on the same page as us in that what we thought was, look, everyone wants to do video podcasts, and it's really tough. It is. It's a pain in the neck. Look at this setup. It's amazing that Tom's got.
Tom.
Yeah, everyone needs a Tom, but unfortunately, Tom is mega talented, ergo more expensive than my little Star Wars podcast can afford.
Love that.
But we also want to do good video content. So what we do is we just fluff it. We go on Riverside and we do talking head videos, and there's you and I talking head video like we did for In and Around podcast.
Oh, yeah.
I also don't want to pay for video hosting because it's expensive. Guess who's good at it? YouTube. So we'll put it on YouTube, maybe get some more viewers as well. And then what we did was we said, look, if you put this episode out now of you and I talking in audio only, but you put this on YouTube as well, just take the YouTube link or the integration and stick it in this area in Captivate on this episode. And what we'll do is we'll assume that that is the alternate version. And we'll use that alternate enclosure tag. Wasn't intended for that, but now everyone's like, oh, actually, we should probably do that. And what that means is, from a listener's perspective, that I can go on your website, and when I click the episode, I will get the audio version and the video version, and it's no more work for you theoretically to set that up. If you embed your podcast player on Twitter, I can press play on the audio, but I can also, there's a little video icon, and guess what? It will slide up and show you the video version and related videos from your YouTube channel. So it's another way of cross-promoting stuff. So it's a really, sounds weird because it's a really basic implementation, but it's so useful to creators. And that's, I think, is a really good example of like podcasting 2.0 working behind the scenes, but no one really noticing it, which is all good. That's what we want.
I was going to say, surely if nobody knows that it's happening, that means it's working well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're coming up with the ideas that people need.
Because education is so tough. If you said, as an example, you want to use the podcasting 2.0 value for value stuff. You need an Alby wallet, which is a Web 3.0 blockchain-based wallet to allow the transfer of minuscule pieces of Bitcoin called Satoshis to be streamed to you on a value for value basis, right? What the heck does that mean? So there's education, and that's part of podcasting 2.0, but it's so complex and heavy that they're just simply not going to adopt it anytime soon. But YouTube embed, it's podcasting 2.0, but no one notices. The listener just thinks, I'll watch the video version. I didn't know that existed. So I believe that's where podcasting 2.0 is and should be headed, is that invisible layer of technology. I want a listener to be able to pay you for subscriptions and memberships and tips without knowing that it's powered by podcasting 2.0. That's the goal. So, and we'll get there, we will. It's a big movement, but it will take some time, but we'll get there.
Absolutely. And I guess I'm going to ask the question then that there's probably some people thinking is there going to be a podcasting 3.0?
Probably. Someone just decides, don't they?
They do.
Someone just one day just goes, oh, it's now we're on podcasting 3.0. I think, flippancy aside, I mean, 2.0's got another 10, 12 years before it's mainstream. It has. The way that Web 1.0, 2.0, 3.0 came about was all through functionality shifts. So the first Web 1.0 was very much, I can make something that is information and give you that information that you can consume. That was Web 1.0. Then about 2008, 2009, we had a lot of development around things like asynchronous JavaScript, things that could happen on screen while you were interacting with it. And Web 2.0 came about, and that was the ability to interact with and create things on the web using a browser, not just not downloaded software. So that was the difference between 1.0 and 2.0 when it came to web. And then 3.0 was very much this blockchain, decentralized underpinning, and that was 3.0. Podcasting probably doesn't have those cataclysmic shifts. You know, if you go from consumption of information to two-way creation to blockchain, they're very different cataclysmic moves in what the web was. Podcasting, I don't think will have those, just the size of the developments that the web would have, you know, because it's not as, obviously, clearly not as big. And it's still very much a consumer-led and creator-led environment as well. It still is like, you have to create something for me to consume, and I have to want to consume that thing from you.
Yeah.
So someone at some point will just go, right, yeah, this new set of features, this is now 3.0.
Yeah.
But I think it'll be more, I think it's probably more a case of it will just be 2.0 for the next 10, 12, 15 years, and then who knows where podcasting will be at that point.
Well, I think this is the crazy thing, isn't it? Is because, I mean, even like today, you go around, you're having a look at all of these amazing stands and all these amazing ideas that people have got, and all the different companies for the different ideas. And I guess there's a big question as well around AI for podcasting, and how much AI do you use, and at what point? Because, I mean, I know of people, and this isn't knocking on people, this is just, you know, making the conversation, but you know, there are some people who they'll have AI come up with the ideas, AI write the script. You've even got podcasts now where AI read the scripts,
right,
and then, you know, it gets uploaded, and you kind of end up thinking, where's this gonna go? I mean, from my point of view, it's not something that really worries me, because the podcasts that I like to listen to, in my opinion, you couldn't get the stuff generated through AI. You know, the conversation, the quirkiness, the things like me. Like I was interviewing somebody earlier, and I asked them, we were talking about websites, and instead of asking them, what does a podcast website need? I managed to ask them, what does every podcaster need to have a podcast for? And I was like, that's not what I meant. That is not what I meant, but that is just the result of getting up at 5 a.m. But you know what? I'll probably leave that in, because it's something, it's quite funny. And he just looked at me, and I was like, no, we need to scale back on this. But the point is that AI can't create that quirkiness of conversation. But I'd love to know, have you got any thoughts about AI use in podcasting, or do you think it's going to take over?
No, nothing takes over, does it? It's one of those things, everyone's scared of everything, but it's, you know, we're not, Are we closer to Terminator than 1984? Yes, but are we close to Terminator? Probably not. Do you know what I mean? You're going to spot it.
No, because I haven't watched Terminator. Use a Star Wars reference.
Tom, did you hear that?
I haven't seen Terminator films. Tom.
Verity's not seen Terminator.
Not.
Tom,
have you seen them? Tom's not seen them either.
this is wild. I'll use a Star Wars reference.
Please use a Star Wars reference.
You've seen Star Wars, Tom? Are you
Really?
joking me?
Oh no.
Interview
There's-
Terminator.
I was going to say, there's only like, what, how many films are there now?
Yeah, you've only got
10,
19
11.
to watch, mate. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
Right.
Plus all of the series that they did.
You've got weeks worth of.
I was going to
can't
say,
believe
if you
this.
start now, you'll be done by Christmas,
Yeah.
I reckon.
Well,
No? Oh,
I'm
Tom.
flabbergasted. Well,
Same.
we're not close to the droids taking over. Let's put it that way.
gotcha. Okay.
But AI is always useful for getting you 50, 60, 70, 80% of the way there. And that, whether it's 50 or 80, depends on what you do and how you do it. Do you get the best results that should be published from AI? Of course not. Do you get help from AI? Yes, of course you do. So Captivate we've got an AI project that we'll do what we do in a Captivate way. So we'll do what everyone else does, because, you know, that's cool. We'll just, you want your show notes writing, that's easy. You want some title suggesting, that's easy. But we'll do some other stuff that no one else is doing, which we've got planned, and we'll be like, inevitably, like we always do with Captivate, someone will just go, why didn't we think of doing that? But it's only because we're creators and we want, you know, I want to be lazy, frankly. So
Hey, it's like it's all connected to the
yeah,
podcast.
who thought of that?
Exactly.
But I think the role of AI is interesting. I don't see it taking over. I don't see it posing a problem. I don't see there's that much risk in it if you understand it's just there to get you some way of the way there. It's not there to take over. It's there to help you to start something. Whether that's give me some episode ideas, whether that is give me some episode titles based on this transcript or this audio. That's cool, because I might not be a marketer, I might not be an SEO person. That's all right. And I'd rather you had an AI assistant doing a little bit of the work that gets you 10% closer to being very good at one aspect of podcasting that you might struggle with, like SEO or whatever, than just flounder and you think, oh, well, I'm not growing, so I'm not going to bother with SEO and then quit podcasting. I'd rather AI helped you with that one.
Yeah.
Do I think everything should be run through AI? No, I think you'd lose a lot of the humanity. Would I get it to write my show notes? Yes, and I do, because I hate writing show notes.
Yes, I.
And do I get it to do other things for me, like maybe get some sound bites and, you know, do a lot of the legwork? Yeah, of course. And that I think is the important distinction. If you can remove the legwork without sacrificing the quality, then use it to your heart's content. Yeah, that's my view.
Absolutely, I completely agree with you. I think it's that differentiation, isn't it, between thinking that it's going to be an all or nothing kind of thing, but actually, if you use it as a tool, then, like you said, it gets you closer to where you want to be. So I use AI to pick out timestamps, for example, because I am horrible. I'll be listening to something and then I'll be like, oh, damn, I actually needed the timestamp from like 30 seconds ago. So timestamps for me, brilliant. Show notes, absolutely. What's the other things I use? I don't tend to use it for episode titles because I don't know why, but AI always generates something for me which has got the word like powerful in it. And I'm like, what is it with AI and the word powerful?
But it's like it's trained on weird old blog posts as well. Yeah. It's like it's figured out, okay, you need a pile of surreptitious sort of hyperbolic, you know, 3 ways to 10x your something by doing these 2 simple hacks.
Yes, and skyrocketing. AI likes to skyrocket things.
It's like some idiot entrepreneur trying to sell a course every time it does you a title, I have to admit. But it's we use it for the Star Wars podcast because imagine AI trying to make a hyperbolic title out of a Star Wars podcast. It's virtually impossible.
Maybe that should be an episode, though.
Yeah, we should try it.
You give that to AI as a prompt. Give that to ChatGPT and see what it actually throws back at you.
Give me a salesy, guru-esque entrepreneur title for this Star Wars stuff. Yeah, all right, I might try that.
I like that. Yeah, do you know what, though? I have to ask you, though. My husband and I have this debate quite often. It's about Star Wars related, not podcasting. But
I'm in.
Would Star Wars have ended the same if R2-D2 was not there?
Oh, he's the man, isn't he? He's the glue.
He is, isn't he?
He's like the droid that just nudges everything in the right direction, isn't he?
Yeah. Absolutely.
No, Anakin would be dead because he would have died in Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, everyone would be dead, I think.
R2 is the glue of it all.
Absolutely.
He knows everything, that thing.
He does.
Doesn't he?
Do you know what, though? This is what my husband and I have said so many times. Like, they're trying so hard to blow up all these different ships and do all... Tom doesn't have a clue what we're talking about. But, you know, trying to blow up all these ships and start all these wars and whatever they're doing. But actually, they should have just blown up R2-D2.
Big time.
Because, I mean, if R2-D2 wasn't there, I think every single film would have finished in about 5 minutes.
Literally, he always gets them out of it, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. And even at that, I mean, we don't really talk about the final... Do you like the new 3?
I really enjoyed Force Awakens.
Okay.
I didn't like The Last Jedi, and then I've come to love it. And The Rise of Skywalker, I despise.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can get on board. Okay, yeah, okay. I can get on board with that opinion. But I feel like if R2-D2 had just come to life at the beginning of that.
What a wild thing, right? Just at the end, it's like, okay, yeah. Yeah. I love The Force Awakens, but I got what people say about it being a remake of A New Hope, but I was sort of all right with that because I don't know how else you would have restarted it.
Just not done it?
Well, I agree. I mean, I would have been well up for none of the sequel stuff. I have to admit, I would have been well up for it. But, I have to admit that I don't know how else you would have started it.
No. And you know what? We had that conversation as well. But, just no offence to anybody who took part in that. And, God love Carrie Fisher.
I know, right?
But I just don't think we needed.
We didn't.
I don't think we needed it. And should I tell you, we weren't even going to be talking about Star Wars at all, but should I tell you the thing that really wound me up about the final trilogy is they had the ship which was crashed in the sea, and they had this knife thingy that just happened to line up. I mean, I was sat there in the cinema going, what? They predicted the fact that ship was going to dismantle in that way.
And then they've had to retcon it. There's a book that came out, because that was the biggest bugbear for me as well, right? And they had to retcon it by saying that the knife was made by that Okio Bistoon guy after the Death Star gone. And I was like, if you've got to explain it in a book, sort your films out.
I feel like there was some like post-script writing processes that just didn't.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of any of that. Not a fan of any of that.
I like to think George Lucas wasn't as well. But
I would imagine he's livid.
Yeah. What's the name of your Star Wars podcast, just so that everyone can check it out?
We've got a very good domain, actually. It's Spark of Rebellion, which is the first episode of Rebels. And we managed to get sparkofrebellion.com.
Do you know what? I know somebody who managed to get, what's it called? POD cast, as in like the podcast.
Yeah.
Because they're print on demand. They're called the POD cast, and they were like, nobody's taken it. And you're like, why has no one taken a name that literally says the podcast?
That's hilarious. Yeah.
You're like, that's just, but yeah, so they've got the POD podcast, the podcast. I'm like, that is marketing.
Genius.
That really, really is. That is out of the box thinking. Right then, I'm going to ask you quick fire then. 3 top tips, anyone starting a podcast or has got a podcast and is struggling to grow, 3 top tips to help them.
That you've got to go where your listeners already are. So you've got to go where people are listening to podcasts. Just be guests, do this that we are doing. And if you can't be a guest, then collaborate on feed drops and promo swaps and trailers. So we were doing that 10 years ago manually. It was a nightmare to manage it, but we all did it. That's the first thing. The second thing is underutilized, really. Is flip that around, go the other way. So there's going to be a lot of people that know about your topic, Star Wars, but they've got no idea what a podcast is. Go where they are. As an example, go to Star Wars Celebration with a T-shirt on saying, I has Star Wars podcast.
Did you go this?
Yes, we went to London.
We tried to get tickets and I was in a virtual queue for about 45 minutes.
We looked out.
I'm so jealous.
We looked out. It was good as well. We saw all the announcements and stuff, which was brilliant. And then,
so jealous.
But yeah, go somewhere like that. You know, if you've got a financial podcast and it's for accountants and it's some super niche, go to accounting conferences, not podcast conferences.
Sure.
You know, if you can only spend your money in one place, go where your audience is and teach them about podcasts.
Yeah.
So that's the second thing. The third thing is, you will often obsess about having a perfect episode, and good and shipped. Good and out, good and released is better than perfect and sat at home on a shelf.
Definitely.
So you've got to just give yourself a bit of time back by just understanding that, the edit could be better. Could the quality of the sound be better? Yeah, but if it's 7, 8 out of 10, the general listener doesn't mind that it's not 10 out of 10. You know, and I think that applies in so many ways. Your show notes, don't sweat your show notes. If you can't do them, you can't do them. So I think people, they bite off too much because they see too much going on and they think I've got to do every facet of podcasting like the news agents does it or like Jordan Harbinger does it. And we can't because we're too busy. So good and shipped is better than perfect and never released.
Yeah, I think that's such a key point. I was talking to somebody in, was it a Reddit forum or whatever it was recently? Discord, that was it, on Discord platform server. I was going to call it completely the wrong thing then. Discord server. And they were saying exactly that. They were like, how do I get myself on every single platform and do all these things like all these big shows do? And I actually challenged them in a nice way, because I'm not that argumentative online, but I challenged them in a nice way. And, I said to them, what is it that, are you doing this by yourself? What is it that you seem to think that you can do as an individual that, like, if you're comparing yourself to Stephen Bartlett, for example, brilliant podcast, but we also know that Stephen Bartlett has got a huge budget going into Diary of a CEO. He's got specialists in all the different, social media platforms and doing his collabs, all these different things. So I said, why are you trying to do all of that and achieve the same output by yourself? Because that's not it's not comparable. So I completely agree with you. It's funny when you said the perfect episode does not exist. Another pop culture reference. It reminded me of, you seen Mean Girls?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Long time ago. Wow.
But Mean Girls, it's what is it? The limit does not exist, when she's doing that maths equation right at the end, and actually they kept that in the remake, which I watched recently, which is shameful to say.
I forgot it had been remade actually. Yeah, it's recent, hasn't it?
I secretly enjoyed it. I'm not sure I want to admit that, but it was it was actually secretly. I got way more into it than I thought I was going to.
How they get you.
Yeah, well, exactly. But the limit does not exist. The perfect episode doesn't exist. I completely agree. And I think, just kind of going back to that point about budgets and what have you, we know that there's a lot of very, very big podcasts out there who actually, they're not using the most expensive microphones. They're not using amazing studio setups. They don't have Tom.
No. Everyone does need a Tom.
I feel like we need a counter of how many times we've actually mentioned poor Tom's name. Will you walk into the camera later? Just at 9. It's a good thing it's not a drinking game, isn't it?
Yeah.
You'll have to walk into the walk in later just so we can get some context, because otherwise it sounds like we're talking to somebody who doesn't exist off.
Yeah, we're just making it up.
There's a Bob next to him as well. I've completely forgotten what I was even saying. Oh yeah, people don't have a Tom. People don't have these these big budgets and what have you, and that's okay.
Yeah,
it's okay. And like I said, there's a lot of very, very big shows, very popular shows that don't have massive setups. I'm a huge fan of the Catherine Ryan podcast, and she happily admits, okay, fine, she doesn't produce it, but she is very open about the fact that she just records it in her kitchen if needs be, and her kids run in every so often. And I'm kind of thinking to myself, well, if somebody as big as Catherine Ryan, who's got a hugely successful podcast, if she can have her kids randomly run in on your podcast, why can't Joe Blogs or Sarah Blogs have the same thing? I think we strive for this perfection sometimes that it only exists in our own heads. In some ways, it's
totally subjective as well, isn't it? That's the thing. It's totally subjective. Yeah, don't sweat those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Because at the end of the day, if people like the content, they'll come to your show and they'll stick around for that as well.
That's the main thing. Keeping people sticking around is bigger than perfection.
Yes,
it is.
Absolutely. Okay, I'll ask you for one final tip, and then I'll stop talking, because Tom's a bit come on, Verity. How do we make people stick around for our podcasts?
I think the thing is, when someone's finished listening to a podcast, they're looking for the next thing to listen to. And you just got to make sure that next thing is your episode.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think it's that people will just go back through the catalogue. Unless they're a fan, they're not going to do that. So they need signposting out. If I listen to a Michael Rosenbaum podcast, or I listen to whatever, Happy, Sad, Confused, whatever, at the end of it, I'm like, what am I in the mood for? It's rare that I'm in the mood for something different to that, because then I've got to go back through finding something. What am I feeling? What am I vibing at this point? I don't want to go back to my library. I can't be bothered. It's easier for the host to just say, if you like this episode, we think that this will match up with episode 17 really well. So just scroll back and find episode 17, or there's a link in the show notes. That's the biggest and best way of keeping people sticking around, is just make it easy for them to decide. Don't even make them decide. Just give them the next episode. And that works. We see that with a lot of the biggest shows. They do that. They'll find... Jordan does it with his show really effectively, where he'll say, okay, this is an episode about Israel and Hamas. What do we have? Like, the last few episodes might have been around the pandemic. They might have been around biohacking. 10 episodes ago, we did another one around Israel and Hamas. So they'll recommend that one, not just go back and listen to the back catalogue. They'll say episode 121 is more of this. So that's really powerful. It does work, that.
It is. It's really specific as well. So I can't think off the top of my head for an episode to link to. So anyone listening to this episode, scroll back to number 54 and we'll see whatever.
We'll see how relevant it is.
Yeah, exactly. It's probably not at all. It's probably going to be something completely off the wall. I'm going to have to look up what episode 54 is, but links in the show notes. Check out episode
Fingers
54.
Crossed.
Absolutely. Mark, thank you so much for sitting down with us today.
Pleasure.
I have taken up too much of your time, but I've really, really appreciated it. It's been great to chat, and let's go explore the show a little bit more and go network, learn, and thank you so much for your time.
Go get a beer. That's what we're all thinking.
Or my can of Coke, which is sat there the whole time, not being drunk.
Solitary can of Coke.
Absolutely. Other fizzy drinks are available.
Thank you, Verity. Appreciate it.